All right, welcome back, historians. We are going to be looking at civilization now. You've gone down the path to civilization and you have arrived. So, again, in order to have civilization, you must have agriculture. Um, or you have to have a surplus. So, you could have like a kind of pastoral situation too. So 3,500 BC, BCE is when we see the first urban societies. BCE means before Common Era. And the numbers during this time period go from bigger to smaller as we approach zero. So that is, um, we've got 3,500. And before that we've got like 5,000 or whatever. So zero, yes. And then here we have Common Era. We can get into why we have those names in class, but I just want you to know. All right, so where are we seeing urban societies that turn into civilizations? The first place we're seeing them is in Mesopotamia. This is between the Tigris and Euphrates River. And this is in basically modern day Iraq and a little bit into Turkey, maybe a little bit of Iran too. And Mesopotamia means the land between two rivers, middle, basically. Okay, Egypt is along the Nile River. I think that's, if you know of any ancient civilization, that's the one you're going to know. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa are by the Indus River Valley. So this is really modern day India and Pakistan. And the Shang is along the Huanghe River, and this is basically the Yellow River. And then in the Americas, you have the Olmecs and the Chavin. The Olmecs are in Mesoamerica. Kind of where we think of Mexico today. And then the Chavin are in South America. Kind of like where you would think of the Inca, if you know where they are. So these societies are the ones that are first. Your book goes over each of them in turn, and the one that AP World focuses on a lot is Mesopotamia in these early ages. These societies do a lot of common things. One of the key things that's different about them is their geography. So, again, like you need to know where these different societies are. You're putting them on your maps, and it's really important that you understand like where they are. Okay. So the geography really is one of the key differences in these societies. So in the green, we have Egypt. Egypt was surrounded by natural barriers, mainly desert, sea, and also mountains. And because of these natural barriers, they were very secure. They were rarely invaded, and their river really regularly flooded. And so this led to those things together led to a very stable society. People in Egypt tended to be pretty positive about the afterlife and about their place in the world, and this is probably because of the geographic advantages that they had. In the middle, we have Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia, and I guess that's kind of like a salmon, has few natural barriers, which led to a lot of invasions. If you study Western Civ in college, you're going to learn about how the Mesopotamians go through this whole series of civilizations, starting with the Sumerians, but going into, the Babylonians, they actually take over twice. The Assyrians, etc. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then you should read chapter 2 because that'll tell you all about it. Then they also had rivers that were more sporadic. Um, they had their flooding was very irregular. And this in general led them to be, there was a lot of instability, and that led to some negativity, especially in the Mesopotamians' view of the afterlife. Both of those societies, we understand their writing. Indus River Valley, we do not. We don't know how to read this writing yet. So therefore, we know the least about the Indus River Valley for sure. And but we do know that this society was sophisticated. It had sophisticated social classes. It had sophisticated economy. We know, and I'll get to this in a second, that they were trading with Mesopotamia and also with Egypt. But we don't know as much about them because we don't understand their writing. We think that they ended with an environmental disaster. Man, I'm just really not doing so well with this right now, with the typing. And then after that environmental disaster, there's really a shift in society to the Ganges River. And this society is known as the Dravidians, but it's not one of those early societies. But you do need to know about them for something a little bit later on. So that's more like, in what we would think of India today. Oops, this star down here a little bit more. There we go. Okay, as you can see by the arrows, these societies were interconnected, and when you have multiple regions participating in trade, we call this inter-regional trade. So these societies were getting specialties from one another. Okay. We also have China. Let's talk about China first. So they're not trading with these other river valley civilizations yet. You can see that Chinese society, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Similar to the other river valleys, or to Mesopotamia, the Yellow River, it's actually known as China's sorrow. Because of its irregular flooding. The strength of the floods of the Yellow River were known to jump the banks of the river and put it on a completely different path. In the process, destroying whole villages and thus thousands and thousands of people. So the key for Chinese emperors to control, or emperors or kings to control things, was irrigation and flood control. And whoever, if you had power, it was likely that you were controlling the flow of the river. Yeah. Their society is slightly different because of the prominent role of ancestor worship. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We're not going to focus as much on the Chavin and the Olmec, but you'll notice that both of these societies, and really there are a bunch of smaller societies that kind of come into play here, and I kind of use the Chavin as one example of these early Andean societies. So you'll notice that these two societies, both the Olmec and the Olmec, are kind of here. And I don't really have a great map of them either. There's no big rivers that these are associated with, and that really changes the style of agriculture. We see in Latin America, or in South America, we see terrace farming playing a bigger role, and there's different. You're basically doing agriculture slightly differently because of their environments. So regardless of where they are, this agriculture led to a huge surge in population. And in the next slide, or in the next part of the video, we're going to get into the specialization that comes with those huge gains of population.